morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Like I said, happy first day of spring, snowy first day of spring, or if you're in West Michigan. So super fun topic that we're going to talk about today, attracting talent. A little bit about our agenda here today. Of course, we're going to start with a welcome, introduce you to our panelists here today. We'll then break out into the panel discussion. Per our typical cafe setups, we'll then break out into groups to have discussions with a topic question for you to dive in deeper into your groups, what you're struggling with and solutions. We'll then gather back for a group report out, always leaving time for Q&A at the end so we can address some of those issues, those burning issues that may be relevant across the group here. And then wrap up and send you off to your day. All right. So for those of you that have joined us before, my face is probably familiar. I am Lisa Brown. I'm the Vice President of Client Services here at HR Collaborative, and I'll be serving as your host today. However, we have a couple of really great experts. First and foremost, some of you may recognize our very own Director of Talent Placement, Matt Jemilo. Matt connects exceptional talent with organizations that need that expertise. A strategic recruiter and relationship builder, Matt leads a team of talent acquisition specialists focused on driving both business and employee success. Matt has dedicated his career to rethinking how organizations approach recruiting, fostering inclusive communities, and developing future leaders. Over next to Matt here is Dan Banks. With nearly 15 years of experience in HR and talent acquisition, Dan brings a wealth of expertise to connecting organizations with the right talent. His career spans diverse industries, including K-12 education, healthcare, technical recruiting, engineering, and higher education. As a senior talent acquisition specialist at Grand Valley State University, go Lakers, he works with everyone from entry-level hourly roles to C-suite executive positions. So welcome, Dan. Without further ado, let's talk about our topic today, which is attracting talent in 2025.
I think the biggest thing we're starting to see this year is the pendulum swing back in a lot of industries. There's always going to be the exceptions, but a lot of industries to a more employer-favored recruiting landscape. Okay, seeing more job applicants per job than less. If you think back to shortly after or in COVID and shortly thereafter, it was a very employee-favored. It was really focused on have to retain your employees because everyone was hiring, everyone needed people, no one could find people. All right. And so unless you're in like the healthcare space, that's I'd say one that's pretty resistant to this swing. But whether that's manufacturing, sales positions, even in HR production, like there's a lot of individuals that I've had some personal conversations with that have been putting in 20, 40, 60 applications and have still been really hunting for that next one. And so really opening it up to a little bit different conversation when it comes to negotiations around positions and hiring decisions, a little bit more selective, hiring managers in particular. And so I'm really curious to see how that continues to play out this year. Dan, you seen anything?
Yeah, kind of the same thing. It feels like it turned on a dime.
Yeah.
It was really hard finding qualified people. And now all of a sudden the market, like Matt said, unless it's sort of healthcare related, seems to starting to be a little bit more flooded with really qualified candidates. And so the conversation, that I'm having with people is now starting to change, because before they could just submit a resume and it really wouldn't matter what was on there. They would get a call and probably get an interview, and more than likely were going to get the role if they were qualified. And now, like you were saying, I'm talking to people. I just had a conversation with somebody. He applied for like 120 different jobs before he got hired with us. He was in IT, so it is a little bit different, but having those conversations with your candidates and just being like, okay, let's go through your resume. Let's take this out. Let's make sure you're going over the job description and being very dedicated to what is in that job description. Because if they've got 200 people and they're screening them out and they go through your resume and they don't see something that at least like matches up with what's in the job description, more than likely you're not gonna get even looked at. So it's a very different conversation now than it was even last year.
I say too, when I think of, and this is probably different for you because you work at Grand Valley, but a lot less emphasis on degrees, I'd say, in the last calendar year. I think of the 140-ish positions we helped hire with the last year. I think maybe 3 of them, I had a serious conversation about degrees. It was more of, do they have a bachelor's? Cool. And even then, wasn't something that typically came up too often. It was maybe on the job description. But if I had a really qualified candidate that had been doing the work but didn't have that degree, it really wasn't a roadblock. So that's been interesting to see, and something Dan and I we've talked about a little bit. The push towards skill-based recruiting, really focusing not so much on they have 3 years of relevant sales experience. They've used Salesforce for X amount of years, and they have a strong understanding of pivot tables and Excel. It's more of, well, what did you actually do in your previous jobs? Maybe you were working at in my past experience, I was at a running store and I had to upsell people into a membership. And I had X amount of conversions based on my opportunities. And looking at success in, I don't want to say unrelated, but maybe tangentially related areas. And can you apply that success towards some of the key indicators for success in this job that they're applying for? And again, just seeing less of a focus on the degrees especially, but more of this skill-based shift as well.
What kind of challenges, how would you advise clients, or how do you work with organizations to overcome some of the challenges in identifying the right talent?
I definitely think training of hiring managers and in the panels that do the interviewing is essential. So often I've run into instances where you have a team member that's been with the organization for 5-10 years. They love their job, they love the organization, and they want to make sure that the company only brings in the best people. Love that energy, but sometimes that can be a little misdirected of no one's good enough to be here. Someone might have all the qualifications on paper, but they didn't ask great questions. They didn't seem invested. They seemed distracted in the interview. But were they qualified? Could they have done the job well? Push them along to that next conversation, and really setting the expectation for each of your panels. If you have a 2-stage interview process, the point of interview 1 is to take us down from 4 candidates to our 2 finalists. That's all you need to do. You don't need to pick the winner. You don't need to make sure that you are doing everything in the world to get the right person, but just setting some reasonable expectations and then training how to interview well, which I believe that's something you've been working on. Right?
Yeah. So one of the things that we just started rolling out is interview training for it's a higher ed term, we call them search chairs, but in my previous lives they were our hiring managers. And a lot of times these hiring managers, they may only be part of an interview once every couple of years. And so it's just really trying to coach them on, okay, and it's very simplistic, but a lot of times we found you have to be simplistic with people who have no idea, because what often happens is you start to get conversational. And it's not that you're trying to be malicious, but you are starting to, all of a sudden now it's like, oh, how many kids do you have? And it's like, no, you can't ask that. It's like, oh, are you married? And it's like, no. So a lot of what we're doing now is we're going through these very basic search chair training where it's talking about the different types of questions, being intentional about the types of questions you ask, identifying, because we have committees or hiring panels, having those conversations prior to the interviews, identifying what may, I guess, be a qualified candidate, because now all of a sudden you may have that first round where maybe you only have a couple people and now you want to bring in the full team. And now all of a sudden you have these differing opinions where it's like, now what you're saying, well, I've been here for 30 years. I like what they're saying, but do they really want to be here? Or this is something that is a little bit, it's starting to become more of a thing, and it's a little bit of a pet peeve of mine, but having the overqualified conversation where that may have been a different conversation last year, 2 years ago, but this year with the market and how things are changing, this person may legitimately be interested, and it's having that conversation of, well, they're overqualified. And I go, no, they just may really want to work here, and you just have to find ways to challenge them. But let's not disqualify them because you look at their resume and you see 20 years of experience, and this is a job that may only require 5. So it's having those intentional conversations with your hiring managers and making sure they understand, like, these are things you can't do. These are things that we encourage, those things, and just having open dialogue and making sure that they understand that.
With all the HR people we have in the chat, I would be curious to hear some of the fun interview questions that you've heard that have definitely made your eyebrows go up. I think too, when we're thinking of the interview process, it's a lot of, we want to find the right person, but I would encourage anyone, if they have a 6 interview process, can you cut that down? Because while yes, it's shifting more towards an employer favored market, hot talent is still going fast. Okay, and I encourage individuals and companies not to wait on good talent. We always say it, for the purple squirrel, right? And if you have someone that can do the job today, that they're interested, they're within your budget, and you don't really have another reason to move forward with them outside of, well, we've only interviewed 3 people, or we should interview at least 10. I would really encourage, it's okay to move forward with that quality talent, because if you push them out 2 weeks, they might be interviewing elsewhere. If anything, they're more than likely interviewing elsewhere, and someone else will likely pick them up. All right, and then you're left in the same spot of, maybe you already dispositioned your other candidates. You've told them, no, thank you. One of the most awkward conversations was calling someone back of, hey, actually, are you still available? Totally didn't mean to tell you no earlier, but we'd love to have you here. And that can still work well, but at the same time, the image that you present to candidates is very important, especially in the era of leaving Indeed reviews for the company. I just had a client that we presented some talent with, that one of the candidates backed out because they saw some of the reviews of the company. And that's a real thing. You want to be cognizant of the impact that you're giving all of your candidates. All right, whether that's you're responding to them in a timely manner, whether you are giving the follow-up that you say you're going to do. All right, understanding that if you've got 250 applicants, it might be difficult to give everyone a personalized response, but our applicant trackers, Indeed, does a great job of giving the tools to at least send an automated update for them.
And just real quick on that follow-up thing, we understand, like, I struggle with it sometimes too. Timeliness is important, but sometimes I find, even if I just apologize and say, hey, look, I'm sorry. I know it's been a while, but this is where we're at. Even if you have no news, more often than not, they're just grateful that you are giving them something. Even if it's no news, they're okay with that. And I've learned that over time, like, just be honest and apologize, and more, like, they're good with it. It's okay. So just want to throw that out there.
We're all human, right? And it's like, they understand that. So we talked a little bit about, like, the interview process. There's truly interview fatigue, both for candidates and for interview panelists, the hiring managers. It's, so that's, talking about the interview process, thinking about attracting talent. How do we make sure that we're getting our opportunities in front of the right audiences? When we're talking about promoting a position or posting a position, how are we making sure that we're getting in front of the right audiences, or that our posting is attractive to candidates that are looking for jobs?
Sure. You want to take this one first?
Well, we have the benefit. We're very fortunate. Like, when you say Grand Valley, people know who we are. Now, the challenge with that is I'll have conversations and they'll say to me, well, I thought you needed a master's to get into there. And I'm like, oh no, I don't have a master's. No, it's okay. So that is a real thing, but having a recognizable brand automatically puts you in front of the line. So, you know, it's very easy to start those conversations when your brand is recognizable, when you have those things behind you. But, you know, I'm a big advocate for looking for passive talent. And what I mean by that is people who are not necessarily looking. So, you know, we post in all the normal places. I'd be curious to hear where you post, but it's LinkedIn, Indeed, a number of different job boards. You know, it's out there. We've got our social media. We've got people who promote on their networks and things like that. But, you know, really taking that next step and sourcing and putting an emphasis on qualified candidates and trying to find that passive talent. That is really how you separate and distinguish yourself from, I say, post and pray, where you just post a job and you pray that somebody comes in and they're qualified, like your fingers are crossed. Trust your TA team, have them go out and find those people. But it does take time and there is a trust factor with it, but you know, I'm a big advocate for that. So
Yeah. I think it comes down to where you're posting at. The majority of applicants are coming from Indeed. So yes, LinkedIn as well. They're coming to your company websites. Typically, the most visited page is your careers page on your website. But then a lot of people, I was just looking at this Gartner study, is 68 to 80% of people are applying for their mobile phones. How many of us are, when we're making our job postings, we're looking at what it looks like? Is it formatted well from a mobile phone experience? I'll admit that's something that I sometimes get a little lazy with, but if that's where the bulk of people are applying and you spent all this time making it look nice on desktop, but it looks garbled on your phone, that's gonna be, it goes into that brand, that image that you were portraying. All right. We say a lot at HR Collaborative with the bluff of bottom line up front. When you're making your job posting, really leading at the beginning. I know a lot of organizations love to have a 2-paragraph blurb about why their company is great to work for. Make that a sentence, add any additional context that you like about the company at the bottom of your job posting. All right, it's great, fun to know, but in a world that there are 20,000 jobs near you, okay, maybe 600 that are slightly relevant to you within a 50-mile radius, you can just keep scrolling past. And so if there's exciting things about your company, hey, we offer 25 days of PTO. That's super exciting. Maybe you don't do that, but we let dogs come to the office on Fridays. Maybe we have an awesome Christmas party every year. Throw some bullet points up to start that off. Job posting, hey, you get a $1,000 stay bonus each year. Okay, any fun, exciting little blurbs, throw that right up front. Get right into the job requirement or job responsibilities and requirements. Don't just copy post your job description. That is not fun for anybody to read. All right. Really trying to keep it under 600 words, somewhere between 500 to 600 is really the sweet spot for job postings. But then also, if you have a link to a video that talks about your culture, maybe it was from, you went to the Whitecaps game as a team a little while ago, or your team did some volunteer work. You had a marketing company come through and just make a video about your culture. Include that link. Hey, if you'd love to know more about us, we invite you to check this video out. Okay. Helps people realize that you're not just a company, a fictional company or anything like that. You're people. All right. And it really helps to differentiate yourself from the organizations that aren't doing that. Because 99% of us doing the same exact things. It's oftentimes that 1% a little bit different that is going to make that pull for why they really want to work with your company as opposed to someone else.
Okay, well, lots of great information, lots of great topics. Is there anything else that we want to share with the group before we go to breakout as far as how they can approach attracting talent in this coming year?
I keep telling our clients and our team, really, when you're looking at the interview process and your recruiting process, take it from a very strategic approach, but then also just very practically, like put yourself back in that person's shoes. Would I want to apply to this job? If I had the skill set that I'm asking for, if I had the experiences and the opportunity of what I'm asking for, does my job stand out? Look at your competitors, see some of the things that they're offering, whether that be benefits, whether that be wages, whether that be just what's being asked of them. Maybe that's shifts. Do you offer multiple shifts? Is that relevant for your company? And again, asking yourself, is this something that I would do myself if I was them, really helps to identify where you need to maybe tweak that job to make it a little bit more attractive to really pull, whether that's passive candidates or people that are just applying to jobs.
Yeah, I would say, I want to go back to Matt's purple squirrel comment. That's a big thing. And a lot of conversations I have are, it's okay to not have 10 out of 10. It's okay to have someone who's maybe on the front end of their career or is looking to transition and they're hungry and they want to prove themselves, but they check 8 of those boxes. So the conversation that I have with my hiring managers is I say, okay, let's look at those. Of those 8 boxes, are they essential? Yes. Okay. So now the 2 that they are not checking, can you train them? Yes. Great. Run with it. So my advice is run with it, because more often than not, those people are going to be wanting to prove themselves to you. They're going to work hard. They're going to be exemplary employee. They're going to be great. So that's my advice is take that and really try and apply it as much as you can and run with that.
Yeah. Great advice. Well, it's about that time, everyone. We're going to now break out into our groups and have our breakout discussions. Looks like a lot of you guys had a really great discussion. Saw lots of similarities and common challenges. Saw some kind of unique ones, and the privilege that we have is kind of seeing those come in. We've had some sidebar conversations already. I can kind of start out as we're getting our screen shared. One of the more common things, or one of the first things I saw, was the challenges between skilled trades hiring, and how that's a little more challenging than, even just from like traditional college education. Like, how do you validate or verify skilled trades skills when you're looking for those to fill those positions. So some of the strategies that were talked about in the groups is developing a referral program. So having your skilled trades technicians, those with those specific skill sets, rewarding them for bringing in and helping fill some of those positions for you. Building apprenticeship programs within the organization to then help individuals develop or get familiar with the skills that they'll need to advance, and then developing clear career mapping or progression within the organization, so individuals are more likely to stay with your organization as you invest in and develop those skills.
I say a quick thing on that.
Absolutely.
I used to recruit for plumbers, electricians, HVAC techs, and I know it's on camera so you can't see, but these hands have no calluses. So I was not the person knowing how to do that work. But so I talked to the hiring managers, I talked to the technicians, and I'd often ask them, and I'd encourage your recruiters to do this as well, of, hey, what's a few questions I can ask that if they can't respond and give me a clear answer on this, I know they're not good for it. So like for electricians, it was, for an apprentice, can you wire a 3-way switch? If they knew how to do that, they were probably above a first year apprentice level. But if they couldn't answer that as a journeyman applicant, no shot. And so really, and I also brought in sometimes some of the technicians, it helped give them some buy-in to the company and to the process, but also for myself, it took off the onus of having to explain what an impact was, because I am not, again, a handy person in any way. So.
That's great. Yeah. I mean, it's really, you don't have to be an expert in that field to know what the skills are required, but you can at least speak intelligibly to it, right?
Yeah.
Great. Another common theme that we saw throughout the discussions was competitive compensation. This is not a topic that I think has ever been mastered by anyone to say, hey, we all pay equally, fairly. It's never been an issue for us, right? A lot of focus on the nonprofit budget having to compete with for-profit talent. Sometimes, just merely by the funding sources, you just can't, you really can't compete on a base pay with what a large enterprise employer is paying for a small nonprofit, nor would you be expected to. But one of a few of the strategies in being able to help bridge that gap or identify talent that is a good fit for your organization, but may not, that compensation gap may not be as big of an impact to, is Have you clearly defined your mission, vision, and values? And how do you, during the interview process and job posting, illustrate those mission, vision, values to ensure that you have alignment with the talent that's applying for the job, and talk to them about that. Part of the one other piece we were talking about in our sidebar conversation when you were all in your breakout rooms is just transparency around what we can offer. So we're seeing more and more organizations posting the job ranges or the pay ranges for their jobs. Not everyone does. And sometimes ranges can be really broad, but if you know going into the interview or the conversation that you're talking to somebody from an enterprise organization and you're working with a smaller budget, just having that conversation right off the bat and save, if they can't make the change for that amount of money, it saved you a lot of time from that conversation and them their time for interviewing for a position we knew we couldn't meet in the middle at.
Well, and I was gonna say, I can speak firsthand to this. So all my nonprofit friends, I feel this pain with you every day. And one of the, so what she was saying, one of the first questions that, especially if you're trying to pull from a corporate position, that I will ask them is I'll have a very honest conversation with them. And I'll say, look, I don't need to know what you're making. I'm not really concerned with that, but I want to be very clear, like, this is where we're coming in at. If it doesn't align with what you're looking for, that's totally fine, but let's have this conversation right now. And a lot of times candidates will be very grateful for that because you may be saving yourselves 2, 3, hopefully no more than 2 interviews and that pain of, falling in love with somebody and basically coming to the finish line. And now all of a sudden it's like, oh wait, your salary is $50,000 above what we can offer. That doesn't work. So having those conversations, but also kind of what Matt was saying about the electricians, I always ask our hiring managers, why does someone want to come work here? And so now it becomes a conversation of, okay, this is why I think you might want to come work here. Are you working 80 hours? Do you not see your, obviously not asking those questions, but trying to get to work-life balance. Are your benefits something that you can sell them on? Do you have more flexibility than, their corporate position may have? So it's trying to find different ways to sell your organization on why they may want to come here, because some people may just be sick of the grind and they just want a little bit more flexibility, or they, need to get out early for whatever reason. But, I know Grand Valley is really great about that. Like, we have a lot of flexibility. Our benefits are fantastic. So, those are things, very real conversations that we have a lot.
Yeah, that's great. Quality versus quantity. I saw a lot of folks saying, we have, over 1,000 applicants. We reach out to a majority of them to get initial response, and we have minimal, less than 10 actually showing up or scheduling those interviews. So how do we filter through the applicants to identify those that are the top talent and truly fit the role versus those that are mass applying? And there are AI tools out there. Again, you got to be careful with what you're using them for, because it is automated. Make sure that it doesn't have any biases in it. But if you could use some sort of sorting for keywords, or if it requires a certain type of license, you could easily identify those resumes or applications so that identify that they have that certification. Other things that we've done before is asking some just initial questions in the application process. Those individuals that take the time to answer a quick question, even if it's, tell me about, give me an example of a workplace, something that you did in the workplace, something you did to improve the workplace. It can be a very general question, but you can weed through those that are really interested in your organization or interested in the job, because they'll take the time to answer those. Yeah,
I think too, when you're looking at that quantity and you're really trying to get people to show up, that was an issue I had in a previous role of mine. Not sponsored by any means, but system I used, Team Engine Online, was really great about someone would apply. Within 15 minutes, it would text them, thanking them for their application. It would ask them follow-up questions for them. Let's say they forgot their resume or they didn't indicate their years of experience in the particular field. And If I clicked that I was interested in them as I looked through their resume, it would automatically text them to start setting up a phone screen. I used a scheduling link, so I didn't even have to look at it. Okay. When I set up a in-person interview, it would also send them reminders. Hey, just reminding you, 2 days you got an interview. Hey, reminding you, you got an interview tomorrow. Reminding you, in an hour, you've got your interview. That sounds silly. I had some of our GMs that were very concerned of like, why would we want to hire somebody that we need to remind this much? They don't know us. They don't owe us anything. We're not paying them for their time. Okay. They're probably applying to a lot of other jobs. The amount of times they'd answer the phone thinking I was 6 different companies. Okay. But what mattered was their skill set. What mattered was that they were there for us to then have conversations and continue to sell them on the organization, the opportunity, and the potential of working with us. And if that brought, and the nice thing too is that did see a significant reduction in the no call, no shows that I was seeing for a lot of those roles.
Yeah. And that speaks to another one of the issues that folks were identifying with this is that ghosting, flexibility. Definitely don't want to skip over developing a talent pipeline. That can be challenging for many organizations. We talked a little bit about the skilled trades or technical roles that don't necessarily have that higher level college education or the need for it really. So developing relationships with technical training schools, depending on the industry and the type of work that's being done, even having pipelines through local high schools, being, maybe if it's a job shadow or a career fair day where, high school students, seniors can kind of get an walk through experience, what it'd be like working for this company and help them decide what their career path is.
It's a great day to invite marketing to come hang out and celebrate the fact that you are supporting your community.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah, it definitely goes both ways
Yeah.
for sure. Great point, Matt. And then of course, having internship programs. So how do we provide learning opportunities for those entry-level folks exploring a career opportunity while also being able to leverage their skills and what they can contribute to the organization? I saw a lot of folks mentioning here too, some of their challenges really stem around legislative changes. ESTA being a big one that's impacting Michigan employers, right? And employers' approaches to addressing or implementing policies that comply with that. Some organizations are struggling with different executive orders and the impacts on their organizations as a result of that. So being able to help communicate to your employees what we're doing, the bigger why, our decision process, and how we're approaching those, or what our perspective is on those. Again, it's communication and transparency there. And then not an uncommon theme that we hear from a lot of employers is managing multiple generations. There's 5 generations in the workforce right now, believe it or not. Gen Alpha is, they're getting their first jobs. They may be at supermarkets, cash registers, but those of you that are in retail, there's the potential to have some Gen Alphas in the workforce right now. Don't know many boomers that are still working, but there may be some. Or is it the silent generation? Sorry, boomers are starting to retire, but the silent generation, you still have folks. I see the greeters, I see those running self-checkout at supermarkets. We've got multiple generations and they all have different perspectives on work. And so having organizations create opportunities to bring those generations together to celebrate each other, learn how each of them, contribute to and their perspective impacts the workplace. So, yeah, and of course, looking at the different rewards that are valued by each of those generations, because what some are looking for their first house, others are looking forward to retirement.
Yeah. I know before we broke, you were talking a little bit about if you've got a candidate with 8 out of 10 of those boxes checked, and can we train this up? Can we work with those individuals that they're eager, they're ready for it? I think on the opposite end of the generational spectrum, you've got someone that is hoping to work 4 more years.
Yes.
And there's a lot of businesses that get hesitant around that. Yes. I would encourage, you've got someone that understands that, hey, it's going to be difficult if I was to switch jobs so that I can only work for 2 more years. Okay. So I'm probably gonna be committed to this one until I retire. And that's a strong tool to have. You're also going to get a wide variety of experiences from those individuals that they can then cascade and pass that knowledge down to the rest of your team, your younger team. Additionally, people are going to think of, oh, man, but we're just going to hire for a new role, or that role again in 3, 4, 5 years. If you hire someone from a younger generation, you're seeing a lot of 2, maybe 3 year tenure anyway. So you might be looking for that that position again, but now it gives you time to upskill, to develop some of your younger talent, to potentially move up into that role. It gives them the vision of, hey, I can have a career here. I can future plan to stay here and to be successful here, while again, still providing a great opportunity and getting some great skill from somebody that's actively looking in the market.
Yeah, and I would say with that too, you know, what Matt was saying, the market is changing and you're seeing a lot more. I remember when I first started, 2 years was looked down upon. And now it's a totally different conversation. 2 years is great. Great. I got 2 years out of you. It sort of falls on the company now to incentivize and make it so that they don't leave after 2 years. Like, what are you doing to incentivize your employees to want to stay around? Are there different leadership opportunities? Do you have professional development? Are there things that they've expressed that you're like, okay, maybe not right now, but let's figure out a plan to make that happen? Like, you have to start thinking of ways to keep your employees. Employee retention is all the rage right now. It was, but it's a big thing, and making sure that, you know, it goes back, it all ties in, everything ties in, brand, all of that, and people talk. It's a small world. So the more, you know, word of mouth, that's a really powerful tool, and it can be really positive and it can be really negative. And so it becomes what are you doing to keep your employees around, and how do you make them, you know, want to be there and spread the word, basically, like have them come on in, you know, tell other people you want to come work here. This is a great place to come work. This is why. And that's a really powerful tool.
Yeah. So, you know, a lot of times payroll is a organization's biggest expense, but it's also an opportunity for, instead of looking at it as an expense, it's an investment, right? It's how are we investing in our employees, building their skills, and then building their engagement and longevity with the organization.
Yeah. I saw on there as well, real quickly, if I could.
Oh, yeah.
Something about flexibility. I don't think we touched on it because, again, not everyone can work remote. There are many roles, more roles than not, that have to be on site. And, you know, an organization near to us, American Seating, they just implemented 4 different shifts, like 3 12s working Friday, Saturday, Sunday. 4 10s they put in, some second shifts only. They added in, they were looking to add in potentially some part-time shifts in there too. Of really, if you have to have people on site, in what ways can you be flexible? Because does working Friday, Saturday, Sunday appeal to me? Not particularly, but to someone it might, because then they're gonna have 4 days off every week that they can, especially many of those days during the week, if they have kids, it can be a great opportunity and allows the organization to operate more days in the week while keeping their employees happy by giving them the shifts that they want. Sorry, I just want to say that.
No, that's great. And there's flexibility, you know, can you start operating earlier and get it, you know, working your 8 hours from 6 to 3 instead of 8 to 5, right? Offering that flexibility, or, you know, are there different roles that you could offer different types of, like you said, 4 10s or different shifts? That's lots of ways to get creative there.
Yeah.
Definitely want to save a little bit of time for Q&A for the panelists. If you have dropped anything if you have any questions, you can drop them in the chat. Otherwise, I'd love to poke our room facilitators. What kind of questions came up that we haven't talked about yet? And I know, Jamie, you're usually dying to ask a question, so I'd love to start with you and hear what's one question that your group had that we haven't talked about yet, or that you'd like us to dive deeper into?
Oh, questions, maybe not, but some other really handy dandy tips. So we did talk about ghosting. You know, Matt, you alluded to it, the drip campaign, right? But Jack, if you look in the chat, dropped an appointment confirmation. I mean, I get them from my dentist, right? Hey, we'll see you tomorrow at noon, right? So is it appropriate to do this with a candidate? We talked about more, I'll call it passive sourcing, how to go if you're not getting the right ones on Indeed, or maybe your audience doesn't use LinkedIn, how to identify groups, Facebook groups, more put yourself in the shoes of that candidate that you're looking for and go figure out what they're doing kind of on their free time. A lot of great Chrome extension suggestions that I'm going to look into, where you can identify information on how to get a hold of the person you've identified. If you're looking for a truck driver, and you've identified a name and how to go find out, you know, how do I contact this person? And then also being mindful of, we talked about in person as it relates to ghosting, and we had a great comment about, you know, gosh, I was kind of glad my first one was a phone screen because I was at work. You know, are you hiding under your desk or in your car because you're taking an interview screen? So just again, being mindful of the candidate experience on that other side. So yeah, lots of good stuff in my group.
Yeah, well, thanks for sharing. Any other of our group facilitators have anything to add or questions for the panel?
So something interesting in my group was one of the organizations is actually going to be implementing kind of like a follow-up survey to candidates who maybe were interested in the position, and then they have a couple local competitors. And when the candidates that were interested in their position are maybe taking other competitors' positions, just asking some follow-up questions of maybe why or what attracted them so they can better understand maybe where they need to improve with employee branding, which I thought was really cool. I did have a question for the panelists, though, that came up in our group, and companies experiencing growth. And they have some employees that are very tenured, and then they're bringing on some new employees. Because of that growth, they're having to put some more processes and systems in place, maybe tightening up operations. And they're experiencing this rift between previous employees complaining about so many things have changed or things just aren't the same, and it's impacting new employees coming in. What are some solutions that maybe you guys have for helping navigate that?
Yeah, no, that's a very real reality. I keep it brief. I would think bringing some of those more tenured individuals into those conversations earlier on, so they can be part of the process, not making them the decision maker, okay, but having them be part of it so they can weigh in on it, so you can immediately start to speak to why this will be beneficial, and with the hope that they'll be part of the positive rumor mill, because people are going to ask them, hey, how'd that meeting go? I know we're potentially going to be taking away expense cards. We have to do this reimbursement form now or something of that nature. It seems like they're going to go forward with the form anyway, but this is kind of the purpose behind it, and I didn't understand all of it, but it seems like it'll be okay. That positive rumor mill, but you're bringing people in, maybe someone that is really trusted by your team, to get buy-in from that individual will really help some of the rest of the team start to fall in line with it as well.
Yeah, that, and then, you know, change is hard. And understanding that you may lose people because of how dramatic some of these changes are, especially if they've been there for years and years and years, and it's, well, this is how we've always done it. Well, right, but now we're changing it. So what Matt was saying, like, try and include them as much as you can, but clearly have a clear understanding that they are not making the decisions. Like, this is what's happening, but we value you and we want to bring you in. And if you have constructive criticism or ideas or thoughts, because maybe there's something there that there, you know, maybe a little bit of an oversight, and someone that's in the weeds can speak to that and be like, well, I would maybe do it this way if you want to communicate, or I would communicate to this group this way, because sometimes management doesn't always understand that, and they're not in the day-to-day. So, you know, try and have as much involvement, but having that understanding, like, these are the changes that are happening, but if you have ideas, we are all for it. But it's tough. It's tough, and understand that you may lose a couple few people, and you know, you have to be ready for that.
But I hear transparency and communication is really
Yes.
key in all aspects.
Yeah.
Great. All right.
Do we have time for one quick question?
Oh, sure.
Okay. Are things really changing, or are we now just enforcing the policies and process? Sometimes change is really just level setting, was a comment/question.
I think that's a fair point. It depends on each organization and what you have in place, but it is. I've been there where it's felt like we were making these massive changes, but it was actually, well, this is what we were supposed to do the whole time. And I think when you do bring in new talent, that is sometimes a disconnect, because they don't know what had been done previously. They don't know the workarounds or the things that have happened. They just know, this is what I've been told to do. These are the policies I have. This is how I'm going to do it. And my thought is those policies were designed for a reason, to be helpful, and to help give guide rails to the organization and the processes. But again, people that weren't held accountable to them, they're gonna maybe have some friction there.
So no, yeah, just getting level setting. Yeah, it could be a little bit of both. Before we move on to the other, before we move on to closing remarks, were there any other group leaders, Christy, Teresa, that had any comments, questions that would be good for the group or to contribute to the group as a whole?
We talked a lot about what a first day looks like, or a first week looks like for a new employee. So as they're coming on board, regardless of what position they're in, how they feel welcomed, how do they feel, are they being greeted by someone? Do they have a buddy system? Do they have a mentorship already assigned to them? So really just like how those little tiny details can make or break the first impression during that first week or two.
Yeah, it really shows intentionality on we're bringing them on board, making those intentional connections. That's great. Teresa, anything from your group that you want to add or share?
No, I think you guys did a great job, and kudos to all the note takers and the people that assimilate all the ideas and put them in that, because I think you did a great job of covering all the things that we talked about and added new ones. So no, great. Thanks everybody.
Like I said, it sounds like we've got some themes there. So we'll share, of course, we don't share the breakout room notes, but we'll share kind of the themes that come up as well as the slides. Just a reminder for all of you of some upcoming events that we have. On April 15th, we're going to be part of the Confluence Thought Series. Our topic is making a team and cultivating high performance. And this is specifically targeted at during times of change, right? We heard a lot about that change is difficult. So it's cultivating high performance during times of change on Tuesday, April 15th. We're going to be talking about building and keeping the right team. So very similar topic that we are today, but our speaker here today, Matt Jemilo, will be hosting a webinar, or will be participating in a webinar hosted by Terry Berry on April 23rd. And then we're going to be participating in the Elevate and Engage Benefits Summit in partnership with Highland and Paylocity on May 6th. And that's just right downtown at the Embassy Suites, downtown GR. So make sure you save those dates, get registered. We will be sending out registration links as those become available. So make sure you get your seat fast because get your seat quick because those go fast. And last but definitely not least, thank you all for coming today, being present, participating in the conversations, sharing your thoughts, ideas, feedback, strategies. And thank you to our wonderful panelists for sharing your advice, your tips, your experience with our group today. I know it was highly valued myself and with the groups today. So with that, again, happy first day of spring. Happy Friday Eve, everyone. Go out and conquer the world today. Have a great Thursday.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.